Aloha and welcome everyone. It's kind of fun settling back into routine, isn't it, after a holiday session like we had the last 2 weeks. It seemed like 3 weeks because we did our shows on Mondays.
Right.
And then we had the holidays on Wednesdays, and you repeated the shows on Wednesdays in our normal time period. So we got double, well, it's not double trouble, but double the...
Double exposure.
Double exposure, there we go.
Yes.
And that's always a good thing. So, Gary, I want to thank you and KAOI for doing that for us. It's a tremendous gift to end the year, and now here we are in the new year. Maui Non Profit Notes, where we talk story with Maui's nonprofit executive directors and staff to find out how they're working to support those in need within our community. Maui Non Profit Notes is generously sponsored by Pacific Source. If you're building or remodeling a home, please stop by Pacific Source's Cabinet and Appliance Showroom in the Waikapu Bayshard. I'm Susie Theiman, Executive Director of Lokahi Pacific, and your host for Maui Non Profit Notes. For those of you who don't listen to us each week, what we do on the show is that we take some information that our agencies learn as they are out there, and they'll share experiences of how our nonprofit agencies are working to benefit our island home with just how these agencies are changing lives, changing communities, and creating miracles of hope for those in need. And today we're going to start out with Dr. Heather, and I just lost her name. Wittenberg. Shame on me, huh?
Hi,
How
Susie.
you doing, Heather?
Great.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
We were just talking story a little bit about what all Aloha House is involved in. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Aloha House, it's a tri-agency organization with Aloha House, Malama Family Recovery Center, and Maui Youth and Family Services. And you are
I'm a licensed clinical psychologist,
okay,
and I help run the counseling and mental health programs for the agencies.
terrific.
Yeah.
And joining us today, we have Max Tornai, who is, what's your title now?
I'm the Executive Director of Mediation Services of Maui.
In the Maui Nonprofit Directors.
Oh, in the Maui Nonprofit Directors Association world, I am now the new Vice President
Whoa.
of MNPDA.
Wow, you're moving right along.
Oh, yeah.
Jumping right up there. Okay, so Max is going to help us here as co-host the first half, and then we're going to talk about his agency in the second half. So let's get started. I know we've seen. I guess one of the things that keeps bothering me when I hear it is these deaths of people where they find a body somewhere, and it's not. It doesn't seem to be, what's the word I want? It's not...
Well, malicious,
malicious.
like a malicious
Not a
death
murder,
or not a
not
murder. It just seems...
an accident. It's just someone's died.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that something that's related to the things you work with in some cases?
Sure. Severe mental illness is a tremendous risk factor for death. That folks who have a hard time with their cognitive functioning, their mental health, have a hard time taking care of their health in other ways as well, and have a hard time taking care of themselves, period. So they might find themselves in a dangerous situation or an unsafe situation, or might have a hard time monitoring another chronic health condition, like, say, a high blood pressure, a diabetes, or a heart condition. And so it's really important that they have the support to help them monitor their health and their safety. And that's what our case management program does at Aloha House.
I see. So can the public help in any way when it comes to things like... I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that these folks, for lack of a better term, are so far out of the real life with their illnesses and their situation that they won't seek help because they don't realize they need it or that it's out there.
That can be.
How can
absolutely.
the public help?
Well, first of all, it's important for everyone to have an awareness of mental illness and how pervasive it is and how important it is to support these programs, whether it's through the state or whether it's just through giving or whether it's through calling in when you see somebody who might be in need. And I can give the access number later on if you're concerned about somebody. Or certainly if anyone's in immediate danger, they need to call 911 to help somebody. But these are folks who are in desperate need of support so that they can function and so that we can keep them keep them healthy or get them healthy, but just we really take for granted how much effort it really takes to keep our daily lives going.
Mm-hmm.
Balancing our finances, paying our bills, making sure our healthcare situation is on track, keeping our cars going. All of that takes a lot of doing.
Right. Focus, concentration, and you add a little bit of stress in there, and anybody could go off track a little bit,
That's exactly right. And so when folks go off track for whatever reason, it's important to know that a little bit of help goes a long way. Some folks do need more help than others, but the help does really work and is important.
So the earlier you can get that help to the people that need it, the better they are in the long run, the better the community is in the long run. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, there are a lot of studies that have shown that a little bit of community health dollars go a very long way to preventing huge community health dollars or law enforcement dollars in the long run. And there was a real interesting study in the Honolulu paper last summer that analyzed the cuts that were made to this program through the recession.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of cuts that were saved, the money that was saved, was like doubled or tripled in increased emergency room costs statewide. So we think we're cutting and saving money, and instead we're just absolutely costing everybody so much more.
Just kind of pushing the problem further down the road where it gets more severe, more intense. And that's what you were talking about before. If somebody is in immediate physical danger or experiencing physical harm, call 911, get them to the emergency room. But your services are like a preemptive, not stopgap, but a preemptive measure that can allow them to get help before it gets to that point where it does cost so much more to the community in general.
That's right. It's an essential safety net kind of service, these community case management services, where we provide a case manager who goes out to these folks wherever they are, whether it's on the beach or on the streets or in their shelters or wherever they may be, to engage with them, hopefully decrease some of the fear and the anxiety that they may have about dealing with healthcare professionals, and get them on track with their budgeting, with their health care, with their mental health needs, with a job, with their families, so that they can be stable and not then be in those dangerous situations.
So you mentioned something about a number that you could give everyone, that if you see someone who's in distress, that you can make the call, and I'm assuming that this is anonymous, and then you get the call referred to you or to your agency?
This is a state number that goes to a state dispatch. This is the access line in Honolulu.
Okay.
And the Department of Health runs it, and everybody in Hawaii is entitled to this service at the state's expense. So this is not something that the person has to pay for. And they decide if they're going to send out a team to help the person or not. So the access number is 1-800-753-6879. It's 1-800-753-6879. And so you call them, and they help determine what's up with this person. Do we need to send someone, or do we need to send the police, or what needs to happen there? So if they determine that a case manager is immediately needed, we send out our crisis mobile outreach team is immediately dispatched, and we're there within 45 minutes.
Wow.
Anywhere countywide.
Wow.
That's terrific. And so I would think that on some occasions you're seeing the same people again that maybe you've seen
Yes.
on previous times, but at least you've got some record of what's going on with them. And if things aren't getting better, there's some steps you can take.
And the folks that we help through our crisis mobile outreach program are not only the folks in our case management program with severe mental illness.
Okay.
The folks that we help through mobile outreach can be there's something at one of the hotels where there's a drowning or a terrible thing that's happened, and there's traumatized folks who are there. Our crisis mobile outreach team has been dispatched into situations like that. Or someone who is, a well-functioning member of society has some terrible thing happen, and they're really on the skids, and they really need some temporary support to kind of get back to where they were going. So this is really for everybody.
I see. Well, that's good to know, because we all think we're so tough. We can handle anything. We've been through the, what is it, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, or whatever you want to call some of those things.
Right.
But we do need help from time to time.
Right.
Absolutely.
And to acknowledge that fact is a hard step.
It's really hard. Folks, there's still a lot of stigma around the more serious mental illness, but even about the sort of more garden variety stresses that we may benefit from reaching out for help for. If there's a divorce or a work issue or a parenting issue or a sort of milder depression or whatever it may be, that people still feel like, well, I am not going, what will people say, what will people think, this must mean I'm crazy, and be so afraid to reach out and ask for help. So I hope I can sort of demystify a little bit what that process is like, because it's not some strange, weird situation, whatever people have in their head about what it's like to go for counseling. You're talking to an experienced, warm, kind, caring person in a very confidential environment, and it's really not so scary.
For either you or your family to know that you're going to it. Sometimes that's a hard one.
It really is. Getting to that point of reaching out is scary because you don't know what to expect. But the fact is that the counselors who we have are experienced and are requested over and over again. Our main referral source is medical doctors, primary care doctors. So if you have a lot of folks, instead of going to a counselor, will go to their regular doctor and say, I've got headaches or this or that. Almost half of all primary care visits are actually a counseling related or mental health issue, sort of in disguise.
Wow.
Because people are so afraid of saying, well, I'm freaked out about this other thing, but maybe it's headaches.
Is that because
back pain?
Okay, we cover it with that.
So the stress of that mental health issue or whatever could materialize as a physical ailment or something like that, like a headache, like you're saying, like back pain, headaches,
insomnia. Not to say that there couldn't be a medical basis, because there certainly often is, but there's a stress component. We know that stress tremendously compounds a lot of these medical conditions and is actually the underlying reason that the person is in that medical office. So that when that doctor says, I'd really like you to talk to my friend, Counselor Anita or Counselor Dr. Lori or whoever it may be, I think you're going to feel a lot better. When they follow through with that, they do feel better, as opposed to just coming back for taking the medications for whatever it was that original problem might have thought to have been.
And it kind of it's good for you because you've been referred to them by your doctor who you trust.
Right.
And if they say that, 1 or 2 visits with this person may help you more than I can, that's gold.
And that's, like I said, that's really the main source of our referrals. So primary care docs here on Maui who are saying, I really like, Dr. David or Dr. So-and-so. Why don't you go talk to them a little bit? And then if the client wants us to, we will happily communicate with that doctor to make sure that loop is closed and everybody's on the same page. But if the client wants confidentiality, they can have that too. It's completely up to them. The privacy and confidentiality is in their hands.
Gotcha. On that note, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in Central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
Welcome back, and this is Maui's Non Profit Notes, the weekly radio show where we talk story with our nonprofit agencies to find out what they are doing to help those in need in our community. And we are currently talking with Dr. Heather Wittenberg of Aloha House, Inc., the tri-agency that works with mental issues, substance abuse, the list
whole
goes
range
on.
of behavioral health.
That's it. Okay,
Issues,
behavioral
yeah.
health. And I think during the break, Max, you had a comment that you came up with.
Yeah, I was just curious to understand, how the tri-agency collaboration worked. Because I remember Aloha House being kind of independent, solely doing substance abuse, alcohol abuse types of services. And you have a couple other really great agencies that have come together. And I was just wondering, how much of the total services were mental health based versus, substance abuse and some of the other things that the agencies have been known for in the past.
Sure. Back in the day, substance abuse and alcohol abuse treatment was treated in its own little silo. And so there were sort of historical and political reasons for that. And mental health and counseling stuff was over here in its other silo, and never the twain would meet.
Yeah.
And over the years, what the folks in charge on a national basis really understood was that, wait a second, so many of our folks with behavioral health, we didn't used to call it behavioral health, by the way, but that was the understanding that emerged later. But so many of our folks with the mental health needs were comorbidly having substance abuse issues, and vice versa. So you couldn't just treat this one issue without dealing with the other.
Sure, and that kind of makes sense, with people trying to self-medicate if they're dealing with some kind of mental health issue. And I can see how that could go hand in hand and progressively make both situations, that much worse.
You got it. And it has to be worked on together as a unified whole. And so we don't any longer talk about working with those different issues separately. We assume now that there's some component maybe of each going in until it's ruled out, because it's really in a big majority of cases that there's some aspect of both.
And this is across all ages.
Yes.
There's no limitation on it.
That's right. Well, it's like what Max was saying. The pain that folks are in because of their emotional issues, psychological issues, is such that, we'll try anything to feel better. And self-medicating becomes a way that a lot of folks fall into in their efforts to feel better. And then that can end up being a snowball effect that gets out of control.
Yeah, a vicious cycle that just keeps continuing downwards. We talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about, where some of your clients are coming from. And you mentioned, the homeless population, having the crisis hotline dispatched to go out to the beaches or whatever. Are the majority of your clients homeless, or can community members, anybody, come and access your services?
No, it's a really good question. We see folks from every range of the spectrum and socioeconomic status, from the absolute, highest, social strata,
income bracket,
location and job situation, and all the way down. So behavioral health issues don't stop at a certain level of income, and in fact, the degree of severity doesn't even necessarily translate out based on somebody's income. So we absolutely see the whole range. And so, but in terms of the sort of middle of the road folks who are doing okay in terms of their basic needs, but still need some support, might want to talk to somebody for a little bit about some of their concerns, that's where the Outpatient Clinic Maui Counseling Group comes in. And we see, I was telling Susie before, we're up to anywhere between 800 and 1,000 client visits per month.
Per month.
Per month. Yes,
my.
and we're looking to expand in this year to almost maybe another 30-40%
That's
capacity.
That's surprising to me as just a pure raw number, but then what happens in my head is, okay, clearly the need is there. And so if you guys weren't here offering the service, people could be on their own.
It's it feels really good to be part of that, because this is to be accepted in the community the way we are now didn't happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
This is Maui, after all. You don't just hang out a shingle and say, everyone come on down, and everybody does.
Right.
You have to build up credibility and trust,
Right.
and a sense that you can work with whoever wants to come on down and see you, wherever they're coming from culturally or financially or what have you, in terms of their presenting problems. So we feel very gratified to have that acceptance from the community.
Now, that kind of creates a double-edged sword here with is the increased number of people that you're seeing, or the number of counseling hours or whatever, a fact of more people in trouble or more awareness that they're in trouble?
I think it's a little of both, Susie. I think that being in Maui, we're a rural area. And so any kind of specialty service in any area is really hard to get. Mm-hmm. So I think there was a pent-up demand. There has been a pent-up demand because there just hasn't been that volume of service available up until now. And we're still growing with that. So I don't think we've fully tapped that need. But at the same time also, I think and I hope that people's awareness, changing and growing in terms of feeling like, I can go and talk to somebody about this and feel better.
Right.
And my relationships can go better, and my parenting can go better, and my job situation can go better. And it takes, very few sessions to just talk story with one of these folks.
Sometimes that's all it needs.
Right.
That's right.
And our agency is Mediation Services of Maui, and we find that when people come into a confidential setting and have somebody really listen to them and they feel like they've been heard, they're able to let some of that go. They're able to move forward a little bit. So I can only imagine how much more positive it is to go through a service like yours, where people might be having a great deal of stress, anxiety on their shoulders. They're dealing with that on their own. They're not talking to anybody about it. And to really be able to go into a confidential setting and talk, like you said, talk stories, share that
Let it all
experience,
out.
let it all out. And then, even just that part of it is healing, I think.
The foundation of any good counselor's training is in listening and supporting folks and helping them to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, because all of our counselors are licensed and credentialed in the state of Hawaii and have a lot of professional experience behind them, so they get specialty training in whether it's a cognitive behavioral therapy approach for depression or for communication techniques or whatever it may be. So they bring that to bear into that supportive relationship where you feel like they're listening and they're there for you, and then they can give you some tools that you can use in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the misperceptions people have is that you're going to become dependent on the counselor, and that couldn't be further from the truth. They want to help you develop your own strengths so you can take that back into your life and move ahead and be stronger for it.
Mm-hmm.
I was just had a thought, and this may be way off base, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you see people who come in and think they know what their problem is or what is causing this, only to find out after a few sessions that's not it?
Oh, sure. I think for all of us, we might, have some pain or stress over a certain issue and think, well, it's got to be, my boss or whatever.
Right.
And then come to find out, well, maybe there's a contribution that I might be making to the way that interaction is going. Or maybe it's a time in my life where I need to look at my career. What's happening with my career? Are there other choices? See, when we get stressed out, our minds close down. That's just a fact of brain function.
Okay.
That's the way they work. So that when you have someone there to help you kind of open that up and say, wait a second, what about this idea and what about that idea?
And the beauty about that is, and I'm a huge advocate of counseling, but the beauty of that is that you don't have somebody that's in the midst of your life giving you that advice. I mean, all of us have, or, many of us have friends and family that we can talk to, but we, when we're upset, when we're dealing with something, we almost use them as reassuring that, that your attitude is correct. So it's like blanking on the word that I'm looking for, but it's affirming that whatever behavior you're putting out there is appropriate for that situation. When you're dealing with a third-party counselor, people aren't involved in that person's life. They have that not neutral necessarily, but that different perspective where they can offer unbiased advice, and they're not involved in the immediate stress of that situation.
No, that's a really good point, because our friends and family love us, and or they may have some, dog in that fight, so to speak, and they might care about the outcome and in their own way, and try as they might not be as neutral as we might want them to be, or they might not be able to see that other perspective. And so having someone who's not in the immediate situation has a great sort of calming and clarifying effect.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
And the educational background to be able to
Right.
kind of channel things in these other directions so that all the options are put out there.
Right. That's
Right.
a good point. That's a great point.
And I want people to understand, again, that all of our counselors are fully credentialed and licensed and have been with us for years and years. So really tested, tried and true, wonderful people who are requested over and over again. So sometimes, you can see a quote counselor. They may not have actual training, licensure, experience. So you have to really make sure you have a licensed, qualified person working with you.
You gave out a crisis hotline a little earlier. That was 1-800-753-6879. That was the statewide hotline.
That's for the crisis. That's for
Right.
someone in crisis, right?
Okay, so that was exactly what my question was.
Right.
Who's appropriate to call that number? And if they're not appropriate to call that number, what number can they get in touch with you if they're just looking for information about your services or those types of things?
Right. If they want to come in for counseling, just come in with, their insurance and talk to somebody on an outpatient basis, like we were just talking about, in terms of sharing about their family stresses or what have you on an outpatient basis. They can call us at Maui Counseling Group at 249-2121. And one of the gals who picks up the phone will help you figure out what you're looking for, what would be best for you, what your insurance eligibility is,
Okay.
cost scheduling, all of that. They're very knowledgeable and can walk you through that.
Perfect. And that was Maui Counseling Group at
Right.
249-2121?
That's right.
All right, great.
That's got to be the fastest half hour in radio. My goodness. Did we even touch on anything you wanted to talk about?
Absolutely. I could go on all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this.
Let's write her down for 3 weeks from now. We're going to touch on the next subject.
Right.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really do appreciate it. We do.
I think the thing that bothers me the most is we just don't talk about this.
Right. And
You
that's
know?
where the stigma comes in.
Yeah.
People have their own ideas about what's happening, but the more we talk about it, the more those ideas can,
Right.
become accurate.
I'm going to throw out one more question here, and this may lead us into some of your time. Sorry, Max.
That's fine.
But before Christmas, we were talking about the number of suicides
Yeah.
in Maui and in the state of Hawaii, and how that number seems to be increasing, and especially among young people. Is that a factor in what we're talking about here, or is it more just not knowing what to do with yourself to take care of yourself, the reason we see deaths among these folks?
The recession and the economic pressures that families have been experiencing for the past number of years, that has an impact on how families do and therefore on how their kids do. The withdrawal of many of the mental health services that used to exist within the public school system is another factor. When we started out with Aloha House back in the late 90s, that was back in the Felix era, and that probably goes beyond this conversation here, but there were thousands of families receiving services like this at that time, and it has been cut back tremendously. So we do see those kids, unfortunately, oftentimes, instead of in the schools, in the adult mental health, severe mental illness sort of group that I'm talking about, and or the courts, okay, and or child welfare services, right? So with child abuse situations. So the pressure on families trickles down immediately and is magnified to their children.
Wow.
But the good news is there's help.
There's help. If you recognize it in time to seek it.
That's it. It's if I could just convey one thing, if people can hear my voice and I know they can't see me, but I hope I don't look like a scary person. I hope I don't sound like a scary person. But the counselors who I work with are just like me. Yeah. Men and women just like me who are just regular, hopefully, just nice, regular, but well-trained people, easy to talk to. And if people can get that idea in their mind instead of whatever scary image that they may have, that's what I want to convey, and that's who you're reaching out to.
I think the thought that I keep coming up with as you stress that point is that a few sessions with someone to talk about something that maybe you don't even know is bothering you, but has had some effect on you, how bad could that be? I mean, it could change your life back to the life you used to have, or maybe even better than you used to have.
Well, there's no doubt that confronting difficult issues can be hard.
Sure.
And I think that's another part of the resistance that we all face when we're trying to, this is the new year, right? Turning over a new leaf, resolutions. It's not easy to change your life in that sense, but it's much more doable than you might think, especially when you have someone walking you through a process instead of having to reinvent every wheel by yourself. So these are difficult, important issues, and they can be dealt with in a wonderful way. And to take I can't tell you how many unbelievable turnaround stories that I've witnessed or heard about in supervision or what have you. It would just blow your mind to hear the arc of growth that so many folks quietly go through all the time.
Right. And that's what keeps you doing this.
That's exactly right. It is a tremendous privilege to be involved in helping folks in this way.
Heather, thank you so much for being here. What a great show, huh?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Yeah, and what a way to start the new year. I mean, because
thank you both.
We know there are people out there with different degrees of mental problems. Not all of them are, the most serious, but even the slightest of those can be dealt with.
Absolutely.
And taken off the screen, taken out of your life.
And with the new changes in healthcare, controversies aside, the vast majority of folks are going to have some kind of coverage here. So, that's also really good news if people are worried about that.
Right. Tremendous. Dr. Wittenberg, thank you so much for being with us. And
thanks, Susie.
Continue the great work.
Yeah.
I sure will. You too.
And through
you
Aloha
both
House.
too.
Thank you so much. And on that note, we're going to take another short break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Aloha from Pacific Source, and thank you for your support over the years. Pacific Source has offered more of what builders and homeowners value most in building materials and cabinet design. We've done this by offering superior customer service and products, as well as by designing kitchens and baths that are intelligent and elegant while staying true to your vision and budget. Visit our showroom in Waikapu in central Maui, where we display a variety of cabinets as well as top-name appliances like Sub-Zero, Wolf, Viking, KitchenAid, and more. We display countertops, tile and wood flooring, and several brands of windows and doors, including Fleetwood multi-slides and La Cantina folding doors. Come in and talk to our designers about making your dreams become a reality. From concept to completion, we really believe our attention to detail and superior service are what sets us apart. Let us show you what we mean. We are a Pacific Source at 515 East Oahe Way in the Consolidated Base Yard in Waikapu, just off Waiko Road. Call us at 986-0380. That's 986-0380, or look us up online at packsource.com.
And we are back, and then, again, I'm so glad to be back on Wednesday because everything just kind of falls in place when you're in the right place, the right time.
I know, it feels good, huh?
It's routine.
Back to the routine,
Isn't it?
I guess. Yeah.
There's probably something in the mental health realm about routine. Can we get
Structure.
Can we get too attached to structure and routine?
Sure, you need a little shake up once in a while, but then it feels good to get back to it.
There we go. There we go. Well, that's what the last 2 weeks were, and so now we're back in session, like everybody else is in session.
Right.
And for the second half of the show here, we're going to be talking with Max Tornai, Executive Director of the Mediation Services Maui. And you were on the East Coast for some of the Christmas holiday.
Yes, I was in New England, in Vermont, and Massachusetts.
Nice
and
white Christmas.
It was a beautiful white Christmas. I loved every minute of it, and then I loved getting back to Maui right before the polar freeze or whatever. What is it, the polar vortex that is going on now?
Right.
So I'm very happy to be back in
Timing is everything.
60, 70 degree weather.
You did get to do some skiing, and you did have your white Christmas.
I did.
And now it's back to reality, back to work.
Back to the routine.
So you've got a couple of things coming up. One I know is a benefit dinner that Vineyard Foods is hosting for you.
Right. That is actually this weekend. There are 2 seatings, both on Friday and Saturday night. So the first seating's at 5:30. The second seating's at 7:30. And again, that's Friday and Saturday night at the Vineyard Food Company here in Wailuku. And they are a really great supporter of the nonprofit community in Maui. They actually won Business of the Year through Maui Non Profit Directors Association.
Right, for 2013.
Right. And so what they do is they donate a portion of the proceeds of the evening back to the benefit organization, which happens to be Mediation Services of Maui this weekend. And the details are that it's $38 per person for a 5-course gourmet meal.
Scandinavian?
Scandinavian.
Wow.
Yep.
How interesting.
So you can get the menu for this particular evening on their website, but you know it's a prefix menu. You have choices of a starter, of the entree, and the dessert, etc. And it's actually a really well done menu, and it's a great event. So you know, again, that is benefiting our agency, Mediation Services of Maui, this weekend.
That's neat. Now, did you pick the Scandinavian, or did they suggest it as a...
They come up with the menu, and we were just happy. It looks delicious.
Salmon with dill creme fraiche sauce and
thank you
Swedish
for being able
meatballs
to pronounce that.
and almond cake with lingonberry orange sauce.
Roasted ham with mustard sauce, apples, onions, peppercorn, cumin.
Wow.
Lots of good stuff.
Can we go over and taste this afternoon?
I don't think they'll be ready, but you should just come. Just sign up for
come to the dinner. And it's open to everyone.
Open to everyone. You can give them a call to make a reservation. You can also make a reservation on their website. But their number is 243-3663. Or you can go to their website, which is actually part of the catering company, cateringfromsouptonuts.com.
Very good.
Or you can go to our website, mauimediation.org.
Great. However you look at it, go have dinner. It sounds delicious.
Right, and support your nonprofit community.
Exactly. Okay, so now they're supporting you with the dinner, and you're going to turn around and support the community with some classes.
Right, so we provide mediation services to the community of Maui County, so all the islands of Maui County. And what that portion of our agency does is we try to help people settle outside of court. Any type of dispute they might have that, you know, it really doesn't even have to be at the court level, the judiciary level of intensity, but we certainly get a majority of our cases referred from, you know, district court, family court anyways. So it's always a good option to try that before even getting to the court level. The other side of what we do is we train the community in how to deal with conflict effectively, and we also train members of the community to become mediators. So we go through how the mediation process works for the state of Hawaii, tools that can be really effective in diffusing conflict and managing conflict appropriately. And so that training that we have coming up is our next basic mediation training, and that's at the beginning of February. So it's all-day classes on February 6th, 7th, 13th, and 14th. So that's the 2 Thursday and Fridays of February.
Cool. Okay.
And can anyone take those?
Anybody can take that. A lot of people that sign up for these classes are taking it for their own professional or personal development, but they see what a positive and really influential process this can be for a broad spectrum of different types of disputes, that they end up wanting to practice the skills that they just learned, and they end up volunteering for our agency to do so.
Great.
And you do some work with the kids too.
Yeah, we have a peer mediation program, so it's training youth how to use a more simplified version of the mediation model that the adults use. But we also, teach them similar conflict resolution skills, and we will give that school support in implementing, a peer mediation program.
Interesting. Have you been doing that for a while?
Yeah, we've been doing that for quite some time. Over the last few years, when the recession hit, our funding got cut as well,
right.
just like a lot of organizations. So we scaled back a little bit on the youth program, but if there's an interested school out there, we absolutely would be willing to work with you. Would love to work with you.
And they can give you a call at?
They can give our office a call at 244-5744. And again, that is just to find out about any of our services.
Okay. Among those services, there's the condominium mediation program. Special education. Tell me a little bit about that one.
So special education, that is when there's a dispute on the individual education plan, the IEP plan for a special needs student, his or her parents and the school district. So we offer a facilitation IEP program to basically mediate between the DOE and the parents, and just keep the emotional intensity at a more neutral level, keep the conversation focused at possible solutions. And, really a lot of these disputes are so emotionally charged that when people try to communicate directly with the other person involved in the dispute, miscommunication happens all the time. Somebody might take a tone or the way that something was said in the complete opposite way that it was actually intended, and then they respond, and we were talking about vicious cycles earlier. The conversation just disintegrates into a vicious cycle of name calling, yelling, and nothing gets accomplished. So the mediators, they are highly trained in how the process works, and a lot of these techniques that are very highly effective, and they're able to be the neutral third party that doesn't have an invested interest in what the outcome is, but they're just trying to explore options that could work for both parties, really put a spotlight on where the common ground is, and keep the high cost of going to court out of the situation.
Right.
So as a nonprofit, we charge on a sliding scale based on your annual income, but we don't refuse service for the inability to pay. We have a very generous grant from the Wittenberg Foundation to pay for the cost of mediation to low-income members of Maui County. So that should never be an obstacle to, trying to pursue mediation.
So if you have a child with special needs and the DOE has offered a certain curriculum, so to speak, for this child, and you as the parent don't feel that's enough, they can call you and get you involved in what's happening so that it doesn't go to the level you were talking about earlier, and take that emotion out and get to the basics.
Right, absolutely. And so, you're working with mediators who are trained in really listening to understand what the underlying needs of each side are, And like I said before, diffuse the emotional
Right.
intensity, put it in slightly different words that still gets across what that need actually is, that, and what you want, but communicate it through, a neutral third party. So, the reaction of the person listening to a suggestion isn't right in their face, so it's not like somebody's reacting to a suggestion and you react to their reaction. The mediators are there to let
A buffer.
Yeah, it's a buffer. That's exactly what it is. To allow them time to process that suggestion, to calmly talk about why that does or doesn't work for them, and then communicate those needs back to the other party and keep the conversation working towards what could potentially work for both sides.
Terrific.
So if we had more of this, more mediation, this is a prevention service. It's a tremendous tool for prevention of difficulties, because you're talking about this escalation that can occur.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can keep it, at a point where people can really resolve their problems instead of letting them get out of hand.
Absolutely.
And in terms of the school situation, that's obviously what's best for the child.
Right. And, so we handle such a broad array of different types of conflict. Really anything that's pending in district court or family court, small claims court. We actually send mediators up to small claim court to give litigants the opportunity to try to settle right before they go to trial. And so what we've found is that about between 50 and 70% of the time, people will actually settle
Nice.
outside of court. People absolutely have the right to go to court, to have a judge issue a ruling on the case. But what we hear from our judges is that a lot of times neither party leaves happy with the decision. And in mediation, you really have a lot of flexibility to explore options, talk about why it works, why it doesn't work, and see if there are other alternatives out there that could get to what your ultimate need is, without necessarily, losing in a public
Right.
arena like the courthouse would be.
The judge is in a hard position because the judge can't necessarily sit there and provide that listening environment and to meet people's needs like that. The judge has this full docket
Right.
of cases and has got to make a decision.
Right. So it's actually really
Pretty final once you get there.
Right, and it's actually really beneficial to the judiciary and those judges, because it takes those less severe cases off the docket where people are able to resolve it on their own, and allows for cases that really do need a judge to make a ruling because, the sides are just not too far apart in what they want. And those situations, absolutely,
You
that's
need
what
a
the
legal
judiciary,
ruling.
right, that's what the judiciary is there for. But, this is a great option and opportunity to avoid all of that, the stress that comes with that, the legal expense that comes with that, and really the public arena that, all court records are public
Public knowledge.
public
Information. That's interesting. As I sit here listening to the two of you and your fields of endeavor, if you will, I recently heard a statement that I'd never heard before, and I don't know if it's a true situation or not, but is there such thing as nervous laughter? No,
I think so.
And because as I'm listening to the two of you, we talk about like Heather was talking about. If you talk to your family about something, they're coming from one aspect of your life and trying to help you through that eyesight or that knowledge.
Sure.
And on yours, you're talking about mediation, where there's another person in there.
Mm-hmm.
And Heather, with yours, if they come to counseling, there's another person who doesn't know you from
Right.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard about this nervous laughter, it's like when they get nervous, they laugh at inappropriate times.
Mm-hmm.
And so decisions are being made in this person's life based on talking with them. And some people get turned off by this nervous laughter and don't listen to what's being said. They're responding to that laughter.
Sure.
And this is a real thing?
Absolutely. I could see that, where what was the intention of what that was there for, what that nervous laughter is there for, isn't necessarily to make light of the other person or to insult the other person. That's just how they're reacting. But you don't know how that other person is going to take that laughter,
Right.
whether it's going to be, oh, they must be mocking me, whatever the impression is.
It's just a joke to them.
The human brain, they think, is so big because we need to manage all these social interactions. That's what all that big, gray matter is there for, interacting with socially with others. And getting it wrong is a part of getting it right. So interactions often go funky and strange, and then we read somebody wrong, and you have to go back and check it out with them. But when you're stressed, you're not able to do that.
Right. And I've had a divorcing couple that came through our office where one side was looking up in the corner of his eye, thinking, and she was like, "Oh, see, he's rolling his eyes at me," and that wasn't even the intention, But it's so easy for communication to go awry, and now in an era of text messages and emails, it's even more apparent where somebody might be writing in a sarcastic tone, and it's taken serious on the other end, or seriously on the other end. So
Wow.
mediation is a great tool to uncover those miscommunications and figure out.
We should all take note of that, because there are times when you're trying to make light of something somebody said, and once it's out there, it's gone. And unless they really know you, you may be totally misunderstood.
It's about translating what the other person is doing. As a parent, I know that I have to do that a lot. We have to do that a lot. Your kid's going to do something, and you have to say, "Now, wait a second. She did just roll her eyes at me." But I'm going to take a deep breath and just choose not to react to that and go ahead with whatever it is that I need her to do right now, and not go, "Wow, you're rolling your eyes at me."
Right.
But to be that buffer, myself as a parent.
Yeah, and those skills, learning how to react, is what we teach in the basic mediation training. One of our, he's an ex-judge now, Judge Ige, was saying that learning these mediation skills actually helped him in his relationship with his daughter, because he could ask questions. What did you mean when you said this? Help explain it to me so I can understand. And it just improved the relationship between the two of them that much more.
Right. And so if we could all do that more and just take a moment, instead of reacting, think,
breathe,
and or ask. No, wait a minute.
Yeah. Right.
Did you really mean what you just said?
Yeah.
Well, what did I just say? And then you repeat what you thought they said, and they're going, "I didn't say that."
Right.
One quick thing that I often tell people is if an interaction is going weird and you need a second, just say, hold on just a second. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break. Or, just excuse yourself for just now, wait a second. What's happening here? Let me take a couple of deep breaths and get some perspective in my head so I can think it through, instead of just leaping out in there and making a mess.
Just reacting to something.
I hate to shut this down, but I think they have another show coming on here shortly, huh? Yeah, and we need to get off the air. But this has been fabulous, and we need to get the two of you back on here again. This is great discussion time. As you know, the Maui Non Profit Notes is sponsored by, as a community service, by Pacific Source, the Builder's Choice. Give Paul and his staff a call at 986-0380, or stop by their showroom in the Waikapu Bayshard on East Uahi Way in the Waikapu Bayshard. This has been tremendous for an opening show of the 2014 year, and if this is what we're going to be doing, folks, I hope you really appreciated what you heard today. This is priceless conversation. We've had Dr. Heather Wittenberg talking about the different situations going on with that's the other half, behavioral issues, and her contact number, 249-2121. We've talked about Max Tornai of Mediation Services. His number is 244-5744. And where can you get all this in one show? Everyone have a great week. Aloha.
Aloha.